Osiris.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Goose Chicks podcast, an all-women-led show focused on the band Goose and the community that supports them. I'm Leslie Mack, producer and co-host, and on this episode, we are going to talk all about riding the rail at shows, why so many of us wait all day in line for a chance to grab a spot up there, and the unique community of rail riders in the Goose community. Happy New Year, everybody. How are y'all doing?
Good.
Happy New Year.
I'm so excited to be having this conversation about riding the rail, especially after New Year's weekend. So this is going to be fun. But before we do that, of course, we're going to go through our running segments. And our first segment, as always, is How Did We Get Down, where we talk about Goose songs and lyrics. And I'm going to turn the floor over to Chelsea, who's going to talk about 726 today.
Thank you. So I'm super excited to talk about 726. I did mention this a little bit when we chose our favorite songs. I chose 726. So I thought it fit well. I did want to just get a little deeper into it today of why that song is so important to me and what it means to me. So this song was really a big part of my life in 2022 and played a big part in two major life decisions I made, which was quitting my job and ending a long-term relationship. And those happen not too far apart from each other. And to me, this song is about losing yourself and trying to get back to your true self. Knowing that you need to make this big decision, it's going to change your life, but that something needs to end for something better to begin. For my tarot fans out there, in tarot, we call it a tower moment. Feels like everything is crumbling and coming to an end, but really it's all for the better, for something better to begin. So I will go through the lyrics a little bit, and I just wanted to kind of go stanza by stanza if you're looking at the lyrics, and throw out what I take these to mean, and kind of how I looked at it when it was helping me along the way. So starts with,
and we'll have the link to the lyrics in the show notes. So if you can pull them up now as you're listening, but also you can go right to the show notes and just click on them as well.
Yes.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Yay. So first starts with summer's up in a haze. I've been holding on a little too tight. So for me, this is about knowing something that was once good in your life, it needs to end. You need to make a change, but you're still holding on to all the possibilities, even though there's something you probably need to let go of. And then it goes into a little water to cool down, swimming up on the tide. This is when for me, starting to think about the change you need to make, and it consumes you. It's like, it's no longer an option. It becomes like a necessity. You're just swallowed up in that. Going on, somebody's waiting, we're tired and laden. For me, this is like your true authentic self is waiting for you to make this decision. It seems terrifying, but in order to get back to that person, you know that it's something you need to do. So they're waiting for you. Hit out and shaking, Lord, well, I'm going to be back someday. To me, this is knowing that after this decision is made, you will be able to get back to finding your true self. And that's kind of what this whole thing is about, of I'm going to be back someday. I feel like I'm not myself. How am I going to get back there? And starting to look like it's a possibility, like things can change. Because no one's holding these hands tied up on me. So it's only up to you. No one else. No one's going to make this change. You don't have to stay where you are. You're not tied to one place. You can make your life whatever you want it to be. And so to me, this is kind of like amping yourself up. Like, I can do this. It's going to be hard, but we're going to make a change. I'm tired of waiting. It's already taken a little too long to get back up. I really, really felt this when I knew that I needed to leave my job. But it's like the longer you put this decision off, just the harder it becomes to live your everyday. I remember I was driving to work one day and this song was playing and I literally just bawled my whole way to work, just knowing this is not right. This is so hard. This shouldn't be this hard. And when I got to work, I did not go in that day. I texted my boss and said, I don't know. I can't work today. And it was not long after that I decided to leave. But that line gets me a lot. And then, so show me the way in. I know that it's blatant, Lord. We all just need a little direction sometimes. This is my favorite line from this song. I've posted this on my social media a million times. I'm sure you've all seen it. But for me, this is like, you know what you need to do, but you're still asking for guidance, reassurance. Like you need someone to tell you you're doing the right thing. For me, I say, if you ever need to make a big decision, listen to this song. When this part comes on, you'll know what you need to do. Like you'll feel it, right? It's like,
I love that.
Yeah. Like we all just, I know that it's blatant. Like I know what I need to do. I just need like that final confirmation. I don't know. That's when you know. And then the end will go someday to where I've known us all along, never showing us too far, far from home. And to me, that's finally getting back to yourself, to being authentic, to trusting that decision will bring you the peace you've been searching for, and knowing you're finally getting back to that true self that you know you need to be, and happy, positive ending for me. So.
Some other haven, without shaking on, but I'm gonna be back someday. Oh, 'cause no one's holding these hands tied on me. And all I call of a soul is no one's on me.
Thank you, Chelsea, for that breakdown. One, so great. 726 is such a beautiful song.
Love it.
We were talking before you got on air, and I'd mentioned just Rick's vocals whenever they perform this song are also like, he just sings this song differently than other songs. There's so much, soul and so much connection in his voice. He even uses a different tone. It's really almost angelic the way that he performs the song. He lets the notes go a little longer when he sings a song than he does in other songs. And it's just really beautiful. But also what I was thinking as you were going through that, Chelsea, is one, Rick really likes to write about the fact that we have everything we need to be successful, and that everything that's within us is what we should be leaning on. Like there's a reoccurring theme there. We hear it in so many songs, All I Need, obviously, but also other ones, this one as well. And then the other thing that struck me was low key, Thatch feels like a really good companion to 726. It's like the other side of a different coin, still trying to push you to make a decision to do the thing you know you need to do, but are you going to really do it? It's almost like 726 is like the loving call in, and Thatch is like, bitch, what are you doing? Get the fuck up. So I when you were going through it, I was like, oh man, these two songs actually have a lot in common, even though lyrically and composition-wise, they're on the opposite spectrums of Goose music. So that's the other thing I was thinking of.
Gonna pick up my lock, gonna change my key, we're gonna cast those spell, a little kind of music. I'm gonna turn it up some, I'm gonna turn it up some, I'm gonna take the bed, sitting on my tongue. Gonna find a new hill, gonna pick up my feet, gonna turn my step to the light, through the trees.
Hannah, Alexius, anything else you want to say?
Yeah, I think sometimes we need that, right? Because sometimes we need to be gentle to ourselves and, have that 726. And sometimes we need to just be like amped up and like, yeah, go fucking do it, So I love that. And that's one of the things I love about Rick's lyrics, though, is like, definitely they're very introspective, very reflective. And if you need to make a decision or, something's really weighing heavily on you, you can just pick the right Goose song and there you go.
For real, literally, that's how I made these decisions, was like that lyric. Like, I know that's blatant. Lord, we all just need a little direction sometimes. My brain just went like, you know, like
what to do.
Like literally, like, to leave your job, and like, that you need to end this relationship. Like, and yeah.
Oh, you're such a strong woman. I'm so proud of you for being able to go through with what you knew was right, and to have that, to have the music behind you to strengthen you and to know what to do. And like, you're here today with such smile and such strength on your face. And you're such an inspiration to all of us to make sure that we remember us and that we remember what we need to survive in this life, because it's a hard life, and we definitely need to make sure that we are happy, because we're always doing things, for others. And so I'm really proud of you. And but this song, definitely, I completely agree with you, Chelsea. Like, it is one of those, strengthening songs. And that's what I love about Goose, is a lot of it is reminding us that we do have what we need, that we just need to listen to ourselves. And we're so busy listening to everyone else. And that's also a conditioning that I feel has been done since we were younger. This is my opinion. I feel like from the time that we're younger, that we're told to go to school, and of course we need education, but we're told to do this, and it's all conditioning to the workforce. Our school goes around the workforce and what's going on. And I feel that that's a big conditioning to, as we get older, okay, this is what you have to do to work for the man, to make the man money. And maybe that's just me, but I truly feel that, because you can, we can do things on our own, and we can do these things. But if we're conditioned our entire lives that this is what we need to do, it's a very scary step to take, to be like, oh, wow, I don't have to do this. And not only are you taking that step, but then a lot of people around you are saying, what are you doing? Why are you quitting your job? How are you doing this? And so then all that other stress comes in on top, and you're just like, I know what I should be doing. And it's like a fight that you have to have with the rest of the world. Like, I know what I'm doing. This is my life. I know what's right. But it's hard, because people are used to that conditioning of society, and you're stepping out the box. And so it's like, but I believe that these Goose songs are definitely there to help us to show us how strong that we are, and we can do it. And I love that the community is doing it and showing that we can do it.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Thank you, Rick, for writing such a beautiful song.
Yes, love that song so much.
Delivering
so
it to us. We love it.
I was so glad they put it on Dripfield, because I loved it before that, obviously. And then when it was on Dripfield, I was like, thank you.
There's so many songs that aren't on vinyl yet, y'all. It's scary to me. I didn't say when I was talking yesterday, we did like wishes for 2023, and I said SNL, but also I really want another studio album. I just didn't want to like overload the wishes. So, but I do have that as another wish. Peter keeps saying they can't wait to get back in the studio. And I'm like, yeah, can we get an Animal on an album? Because I'm just asking. I want to hear what a studio version of that song sounds like. Like, I want to hear it. So yeah, get back in the studio, guys. Get a few weeks off. There's a rumor
that they were in the studio, and that they've been, back and forth. It's just, and I was surprised at the time that I heard it, because I was like, where have they had time? But they have been fitting it in.
Getting it in where they fit in, wherever they are.
Fitting it in where they can. Yeah. So we'll see. So we're ready for some music.
We're ready. That's a good time to be on SNL. Just saying, new album, SNL, be great.
And a Fred too. Don't forget the Fred too.
Yeah, and the Fred too. Fred too. Okay, fantastic. We are going to move on to our Goose Talk, which we kind of talk about some unique things about the Goose community that new folks may or may not know. And I'm going to turn it over to Alexius to talk about the positioning of yourself in a venue based on the different band members. So I'll turn it over to you, Alexius, to talk about that.
Okay. So there's a Pete side and a Trevor side. And so for the Pete side, they call it Pete side, sweet side. And then for the Trevor side, I'm not for sure what it was called. Chelsea, what did you say your nephew had named it?
So we were at New Year's Eve. We were on Trevor's side. So we're like Pete side, sweet side. What's Trevor's side? What side? and we're all brainstorming, couldn't think of anything. My nephew Atticus, he gets credit. He goes, Trevor side, clever side. I'm like, yes, that's what it is. So we're trademarking that. Trevor side, clever side, Pete side, sweet side.
That'll make some sweet stickers too. For anybody who makes slaps out there. That's a good one. Trevor side, clever side. Keep going though, Alexius. Yeah, I love that. All right, so we got Pete side, sweet side, and we got Trevor side, clever side. I love it.
And so a lot of people, that's usually the way when you're out in line and stuff and you're asking people where they're going to be, it's usually either Pete side or Trevor side. And but Peter side, people love Peter's just very interactive with the crowd. And he's very that's all you can say. He's very interactive with the crowd. And then Trevor, on Trevor's side, you get a lot of the Trevor bombs, even though you can feel it all over the place. It's just a whole nother level of feeling, like right there in front of Trev and those bombs dropping. But people choose the sides. I would say it's a little bit, the people on Pete's side fills up like a lot faster going in, and Trevor's side doesn't fill up as fast as much. And so I think that's the difference. Like we've talked about it, like the views that you can get from each side and stuff. And I feel like I'm blocked from viewing all the band members on the Pete side, sweet side. So, but I would definitely say, try both out. Try and see which ones that you like. But that's pretty much it on the Pete side. And I don't want to give away my secrets on the Trevor side. I feel like I've given enough.
You have. You can stop there. The Trevor side secrets we've divulged enough. Trevor side, clever side secrets already. You'll have to come to a show and experience it, and then you'll know all the secrets about Trevor side, clever side.
Or listen to a past show of ours, and you'll hear it.
Those. Go back and listen. Thank you. This is relevant because we're going to be talking about riding the rail, we're going to have a little conversation about how each of us particularly decides where we want to be at a show. So stay tuned for that in a few minutes. I'm going to turn it over to Hannah to talk about our fan art spotlight for this week.
Hey, y'all. So I talked briefly about this on our live episode yesterday, but there is a really awesome shirt, Echo of a Rose shirt, and I was doing a rose theme for New Year's Eve run. So I had remembered that at Goose Legend Valley this past summer, 2022, I had seen some folks who were just kind of wandering around, and they were vending an Echo shirt that I absolutely loved and I had meant to buy, but it didn't happen. And so lo and behold, I got in touch with Jennifer. I hope I'm saying her last name correctly. It's Jennifer Hoddle, Hottell, who's a Goose Chick. And she was like, oh, that was us, and we have some left. Actually, I think she posted in the Goose Chick Facebook page that she had some left from summer tour.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I want one. And so I got one, and then my friend ended up getting one. And so I wanted to highlight their work because we had been talking about the rose stuff and their shirts for the Cincinnati run. And then what I found out is, so basically Jennifer was the person who was in charge of taking the artwork and digitizing it for the purpose of creating this shirt. But she actually collaborated with some friends. And so her friend, Shannon, I hope I'm saying your last name right, Clulow, Clulow, who's also a Goose Chick. She created the actual artwork. Jen made it digital. And then their friend, John Schroeder, he was the one who sort of had the idea of taking that particular lyric from Echo of a Rose and creating some sort of fan art out of it. So the three of them collaborated. Their goal was to break even with costs, and then any proceeds that they had after that would go to a nonprofit, because Jen and Shannon both have backgrounds professionally in the nonprofit world. And so when I reached out to them saying, hey, we want to highlight your work for this show, they said that they had finally broke even and they were going to circle back around to figure out what nonprofit they want to donate to, because all the remaining sales that they have will be donated. And so none of them have Etsy or website or anything. It's just word of mouth. But if you are a Goose Chick in the Facebook page and all that, you can find them there. John's will be active in some of the other Facebook pages for Goose fans. And they've just been doing this all through word of mouth. they are hoping to collaborate on some additional fan art in the upcoming year. So be on the lookout for all of them. And I think that's just like one of the other things we try to highlight in this show is how special our fan base is and how we're really good about collaborating. And so just to see these three friends, they're each other's show buddies. They always see shows together. And they're like, you know what? Let's combine our powers for good, make some fan art, and hopefully donate to a nonprofit. Like, how cool is that, right? So I just love that story. You know, that's my favorite song right now. And I got to share their art with my my Goose buddy that I always see shows with. So
did you get the shirt, Hannah? You have that
yes,
shirt?
I have they had like a women's version that was like a sleeveless shirt. And it was like this red color. And then the men's shirt was like this green color. And they're just like the softest material, such good quality, really reasonably priced for fan art, especially considering how good a quality the shirts are. And so, yeah, me and my friend have matching Echo shirts because of this. So thank you to Jen, Shannon, and John.
I love that. I love all the artists that have been coming together, collaborating, creating new things together. Even when Kelsey was on talking about, you know, she made the Getty shirts, and then I don't remember the woman's name she said, but somebody else did the tie-dye work, which that was a collaboration as well for those shirts. So yeah, it's just been beautiful seeing so many people connecting. I mean, this is a Goose fan connection endeavor. Our podcast came out of those same kinds of conversations and connections. So there's so much stuff happening. I really appreciated that Goose wrote in their end of year recap. They specifically mentioned like all the stuff that's happening in the community, the podcast and Western Sun Foundation, and just saying like they see all of us doing all of the things and they're really excited about it. So that was really nice. And so much more creativity coming out of everybody that just in service of and connecting to this band and the community. So it's awesome.
Definitely.
It's brought out our good sides and what we want to do and what everyone wants to do. And it's bringing out all that positivity and like you said, the connections and everyone wanting to work together and help each other. For example, my husband does tie-dye also, like more for men and stuff. Chelsea's got the women down. And but Phil, who is he's been doing tie-dye. And
I love Phil. Shout out to Phil. Love him. He was a big motivation for me. Blue Sky Dyes. Yes.
Yes. And I mean, just how amazing is that? Like he has his own, this is what he does. And he is definitely encouraging, you know, different artists to get out there and do what they love. And Jason makes pins also. And Brendan Folster, he's like, oh yeah, man. He's like, do this. And this is how you do this. And like, totally helping set up like, oh, don't use this place. They're way expensive, or don't use this. They're not as good of quality. And, you know, a lot of people right now in the world would be like, I'm not giving my connections away. No way. I'm going to be the one that makes this, you know, that makes the money. But here in this community, it's just everyone do what you want to do. We're all here to help support you. And so that's amazing. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it's really, really fantastic. Thanks for sharing that, Hannah. I love it. And shout out to all you fan artists out there. You can email us at producer@goosechickspod.com if you want to be included in our fan art spotlight. We would love to include you. Our last running segment is our podcast Flowdown, where we get to highlight a woman-hosted podcast out in the world. And this week, I wanted to talk about the podcast You're Wrong About, which is hosted by Sarah Marshall, who is a journalist obsessed with the past. Every week, she reconsiders a person or event that's been miscast in the public imagination. It is an amazing show. Her most recent episode is about baby Jessica. Just to give you like a flavor of the different things. She has the one before that was about Beanie Babies. So she really takes like either incidents, moments, or people that were in the news that we may not know the full story about, even though we think we do, because there was a lot about them in the news. And she sort of reframes from today's lens, like what did really happen and what should have happened and what did we think happened and what was different. I don't know if you all have seen this documentary called Hot Coffee. It's about the McDonald's lawsuit and the older woman who filed the lawsuit. So those who don't know, definitely go watch it. And this isn't a spoiler because it's just, you know, history. But in that lawsuit, McDonald's really like painted out this woman as like, she was greedy. She was it was hot coffee. She should have known it was hot, when in reality, as the documentary shows you, McDonald's had been sued like several times before. They were keeping their coffee way over their own standard temperature, because they were throwing out too much coffee because it would get too cold. And so they actually went against the rules that the company had set up. And so this woman was given coffee. She was holding it in her lap. It was, I think it was like 60 degrees higher than the highest that McDonald's allows. And she got 3rd-degree burns all in her legs, her genitals. She had to have multiple surgeries. And when she went to them, her initial ask was like, can you just cover my medical bills? Because it's really expensive. And they said no. And that's why she sued them. And so anyways, that case ended up making tort reform in this country really a mess. And I say that I only explained all of that because to me, You're Wrong About is sort of that documentary, but in podcast form. So you get little snippets and different kinds of stories that kind of help you confront the truth and look at things a little bit differently. And she does a really good job with it. So definitely check it out. We'll have a link to it in the show notes, but you can just check out You're Wrong About on any podcast catcher that you have.
I love that.
I love, like, I'm looking at the list of all the episodes and it's so eclectic, like just anything and everything you ever wanted to know the truth about.
True.
And I also, one of the things I really appreciate about that as it relates to our show is it's like, she's sort of uncovering a different perspective in history, right? Like she has stuff from like the 1800s on here. Mm-hmm. So it's like, instead of the history that the history books teach, which is like based off the winners and the old dead white guys, she's like, wait a minute, but it could be this way. And like, I know the woman who in the McDonald's suit, she was like an older woman, like very sweet, and they just demonized her. I mean, can you imagine? You just want your medical costs covered, and now the whole world thinks you're like this, ungrateful, horrible person, and you're like this sweet 70-year-old lady, like you know what I mean?
You're somebody's grandma, and
yeah.
And it was so crazy in that, so disturbing in that documentary because she didn't ask for the amount of money that was awarded to her. The jury did, because they heard what happened and how negligent McDonald's was. It was like, nah, we have to actually make sure they never do this again. But of course, they spin it after the fact that when she went in there, guns blazing, asking for millions of dollars. She's like, I came in here asking for medical bills and for some pain and suffering to be covered because it's been significant. And the jury was like, oh, no. This is awful. Anyways, so that I thought that was interesting about that too.
It's what money can buy, like, the PR of these big companies. And I love that she's doing that podcast because they come out and demonize these people and, and try and find like little things of their past and throw it up. And, and that's not the case.
Blaming.
Like it's do what?
Victim blaming.
Victim blaming. Exactly.
So, all the things.
Yeah. So I'm thankful. I got to listen to that podcast.
Yeah, it's really good.
Check it out. It's really good. It's very, very good. And she goes all over the place. And so even if you're not into the 1800s, you might be into Beanie Babies. You might want to hear about Murphy Brown versus Dan Quayle. Who knows? There's something for everybody. So definitely check out You're Wrong About. And thanks, Sarah, for your work every week. All righty. We're going to transition into our main topic today, which is Rail Riding 101. I think we wanted to just start off with talking about what is the rail. So, Alexius, how would you describe the rail? Somebody who's never been to a show and they don't know that term.
So the rail is what I would describe it as is right up front, like right before the closest that you can get to the band, that they literally have a rail up. So you cannot get any closer. And so that's what we call the rail, and riding the rail is being right there on top of it. And there's like this little ledge, actually, like the rail that goes up. So to keep it up, it's probably like a 2-foot back, like metal plate on the ground. And then on the other side, they have ledges, to keep it up, because it's it's got to protect people from going across, and so it's a heavy thing that's a divider between the band and the crowd.
Perfect explanation. I wanted to start the conversation off with just each of us talking about our experiences, not riding the rail, and like where we like to be at shows and why. I found this to be really specific and individual to people, sometimes even individual to like who they're with and the venue, right? There's a lot of factors, but we'll speak in generalities today, just to say generally where we like to be. I'll use an example for me. Like when I see Fish shows, I do like to be page side, rage side, and I like to be, I'm in the stands. I don't do the pit or the floor for Fish, but I always have the same exact spot that I like to sit in. And it's like 20 rows up, about 6 sections in, and it's on page side. It's just where I've always sat, and I really enjoy it there. So for me, when I go see Fish, I always sit in that same area. People know if they're looking for me, like that's where they can find me. And it doesn't matter what the venue is. That's why I generally just gravitate towards. This is just safety for me. So Chelsea, for Goose shows, where do you like to spend your time?
I am
And
like
why?
super just dependent on the venue, I guess, because I am literally all over the place. I kind of like to hang in the middle because I'm not a rail person. I get too like claustrophobic up there. But if I can get as close as I can get and still feel like I have space, if that makes sense. I have literally been in the last row at a Goose show. And I have been like second row, like right there next to Pete. So to me, it just kind of depends on the night, how I'm feeling. I will say, though, recently I have been leaning more Trev side. I've really just enjoyed watching with him. We like catch a vibe together. So you'll never know where I'm at, though. You have to ask me that night because I will be maybe anywhere.
I love that. Hannah, how about you? Where do you like to be? What's your criteria for deciding where to post up at a show?
So I guess, one of the things one of my soapbox things is like providing, I guess, like a feminist perspective to the experiences of shows. So when I was coming up, like late teens, early 20s, I really felt like if I got too close, then, and this did happen to me, people in the jam scene would be like, oh, she's a groupie, she wants to sleep with the band, stuff like that. And especially being a hooper and stuff like that, oh, she's just trying to get in with the band. And it's like, well, I was in the process of coming out. So actually, no. And even if I do want to sleep with someone in a band, like that's my business. That's not your business, right? That's their business, my business, that's it.
Right.
And so that always really discouraged me from getting up close. I've also had negative experiences where, because I'm a taller, curvier lady with really long hair, I've had people try to get physically violent with me. I remember one time I was seeing a jam show in Cincinnati, and this girl was being so mean to everyone around her and just giving off the worst vibes. And she started getting physical with me and like pushing me. And then this group of mostly guys next to my friend group actually escorted her out. They were like, you cannot get physical with people, and we are going to very gently come up to you and make sure that you are no longer in this space because you are being, and I was like, I was like crying. I was like, I have never been defended like that. Like usually people are like, oh yeah, this bitch is a problem because she's big and she's tall and her hair. And so I just want to shed light on like how things have really evolved over the years and how much better things are. And so kind of like you all, it depends on who I'm with, what the venue's like. I'm never going to get super close unless I'm trying to meet up with y'all to take a picture. So I'm kind of like Chelsea. I need my space. I get claustrophobic, but I need to dance for sure. But like if I'm with my friend Martin, who you all met, like we guarantee are going to have a side adventure. Like that's just us. Like I don't know what it's going to be, but there's going to be a side adventure where something happens.
Oh, I need to go on those side adventures.
Yeah, right. It's so fun. And then like if I'm with Tyler, like we don't talk a lot. Like that's not our thing. Like we just don't talk. But like I promise you our paths will continue to cross. And when I need him most, like if it's like a certain song or something happens like on stage that I want to, chomp to him about, he'll be there. Like he'll just show up. It's just like, So it really just depends on, like the Wilmington show was a really small venue and we got a lot closer than we normally would. Red Rocks, we got there really late because of the carpool situation and the bus we were on. So we were literally in like the last row, I think. It was so bad. So it's just, there's all these different dynamics that come into play. And I'm just thankful that Goose has a scene where, it doesn't matter where I'm at because I know that like people are going to be respectful. And if not, then there's going to be a reckoning and there's going to be a usually peaceful intervention. I have seen a little bit of aggression at some shows, but usually it's pretty chill.
I love that. So I said where I usually sit for fish. And so I wanted to just share a quick story about how I started riding the rail with Goose. I'd seen two Goose shows before the first time I was on the rail, which was in Atlanta. But one was Radio City, which, I wasn't anywhere near the front because it was all seated at Radio City. And then the second was Charlotte at the Fillmore, which they have like a little like VIP like bar area. And that's where our seats were. So we were sort of separated. I actually was really glad because that show was so hot. It was super uncomfortable and people were like literally just like falling out like all over the place. If you listen to that show, Peter mentions it on the mic. He's like, it's really hot in here. I'm seeing people doing stuff like chill out, be cool, be kind to each other. So yeah, Peter's always so great. We're have to talk about the effects that all of this stuff that happens on the floor has on the band in the future. Because we talked about, Alexius and I had a conversation with Peter's girlfriend over the weekend about it. And I think it's a good topic to talk about, but not today, but we'll get to it. We will get to it.
Yes.
So anyways, Atlanta, we were going on our like a 6-show run, Atlanta, NOLA, Austin. And so Atlanta was the first 2 shows we were going to. And we got there kind of late because we drove right from Charlotte to Atlanta. And that first night, the security getting in was so chaotic and so messed up that we got there and like maybe right as the doors were opening and got second, like right behind the rail. And I was looking at Drew, like, how did we get this close up? And now I realized like it was just chaos. They had like 2 sections. People didn't know exactly where to go. They didn't have good directions. And so people like me just wandered up front and were like, oh, we're up here. What's happening? So we had the best show. It was really, really fun. And so Drew was like, well, why don't we just get here earlier for the next show? So shout out to John Weber again. I can't believe I'm mentioning him on the second episode. But anyways, John, jokingly, Drew called him 9:30 John because he would get to the venue at 9:30 in the morning. And so Drew was like, I can get there at 9:30. Sounds great. I'll meet you there. So Drew went that early the next day. And so then we got to ride the rail the second night and great show, really amazing. I actually really like that venue once they got their shit together. So then we go to New Orleans and our hotel was very close to the venue, like 2 blocks. So anytime we left our room, we'd walk by the venue, the Joy Theater. And at first there was nobody there. And then slowly we started seeing like a little line start to form. And Drew's like, I'm going to just get in line. I'm going to go down there and get in line. Like, okay, cool, get in line. I'm not. I'll see you later. So I had some work to do and he gets in line. By the time I got down to the line, which was several hours before the show starts, he's like, you need to meet Alexius. You need to meet this person. You need to meet that person. Like he just started introducing me to everybody he had met that day. And that's when Alexius and I met each other. And he told you about the podcast. He's like, oh yeah, my wife's trying to do this podcast. You really need to talk to her. And then the second night, Alexius was like, yes, like podcast, we've got to do it, blah, blah, blah. Let's really, let's make sure we connect after this. And so I rode the rail that night as well. And since then, I've really tried to, if I can, if the gods are willing and we're able to get in line early and all of that stuff, that I've been trying to ride the rail. One, because I'm short and I really can't see. Usually if I'm not on the rail, I don't do the floor. I'll just do the balcony and make sure I have, ample space in front of me so I can see. But also what that first serendipitous almost rail in Atlanta showed me was how much you can see the connections between the members of the band when you're up there. You can see them talking to each other. You can see them signaling each other. It gave me such more of an appreciation for the music and so much more appreciation for the specific dynamics of Goose. It really drew me in to be a much like more obsessed fan. Just seeing them and watching them evolve and seeing how they interact with each other. You know, we talk a lot about their gear here because it's one of the first things I start to look at. I'm always on the lookout for Rick's guitar being missing at the beginning of the set, because usually that means they're practicing for something new or first time played. So all of those things are really why I really love the rail, but also sometimes it doesn't work and I'm not able to, and that's cool too. Wherever I'm in the house, as long as I'm able to dance, I'm totally cool with it. But I just wanted to thank Alexius because you really gave me a lot of like confidence to be like, oh, I can be up here. Like this is for me too. And seeing so many women, which we're going to talk about a little bit later on the rail at Goose, was really an eye opener for me. It felt so safe and people were so nice and so welcoming. And that night at the Joy Theater, Amy Keikos gave me the set list that was thrown out, that was given to the audience. She's like, no, Leslie, this is your first one. You take this one. And so it was just one of those things where I was like, oh, wow, this is such a different community than Fish. No shade, but I could just feel it being different just in those few interactions, those first few shows where I was going to a lot of shows in a row. And so that's how I ended up riding the rail as much as I have. And I'll throw it over to you, Alexius, to talk about your experiences.
Oh, thank you. So, oh my gosh, that was so much fun riding the rail with you that night and getting to know you and Drew. That run was a lot of fun. But I love riding the rail because I hear people say that they're claustrophobic. I am too. And so for me, the way that I handle it is there's no one in front of me. So I can actually like get breath and breathe and get the air from that, from that little space that's in front of us. And then I don't have to, I'm a big people watcher. So if there are that many people around me, like I'm distracted by what everyone's doing. And, but I love riding the rail at Goose because just waiting out in line, just the family, just the people that we've gotten to know are absolutely amazing. And it is like a protection. I don't feel protected in other places of the venue because at the rail, we're so close and, everyone's gotten to know each other after hours of being in line together. And then after multiple shows that we're all so close and everyone protects each other and makes sure that each other are protected. And especially the ladies. My husband does not go with me to all the shows. I go to a lot of shows by myself or with girlfriends and, however we can go because he's working. And so for me, I feel a whole lot safer at the rail because I have a lot of people that I know at the rail and I know the different crew members. And so I just feel more comfortable at the rail for myself. So it's different, different ways of looking at it. If I came in later and hadn't been there all day, I would definitely probably not feel as comfortable as going up front, but I feel more safe and more protected being up front than I do in the back where so it's just different perspectives, just different ways that you look at it. And for example, like Blink 180, I'm surprised I ever went back up to the rail ever because I was up at the rail at Blink 182 and the people were just like shoving so hard. They were just trying to get to the front so badly that they ended up knocking the crowd over. And I was on the bottom of it. And thankfully I had a friend there with me and he was like throwing people off because by the time that he got me out of it, I could barely breathe. And so,
it's scary.
Yeah, it is. Mm-hmm. So the Goose shows are a lot different, that there's not that much like animosity and everyone like, yeah, there are people that want to get to the front, but it's not the whole crowd just like continuously pushing and, hey, we're going to do this together and, knock the crowd over. So those are, I feel safer at Goose. Not all concerts, definitely not all concerts do I feel comfortable that high up.
Thanks for that, Alexius. And that's a good point to mention about the line. And it's a good segue to the next topic, which is how do you get on the rail? What happens? What is the process for all of this? I mentioned, getting there super early and being in line. And it sort of is a secondary party. That's what I think of it as. It's like it's an extension of, the bubble that the band builds around the shows, and, sort of brings you into community before you even get into the show in a really specific way. And so even out there, everyone's like trading out to go, like, you get food, I'll grab you something. I'm going to go to the restroom. I'm going to change. Who's grabbing drinks? Like, do we need water out here? All of those kinds of things. Keeping each other warm. Do you need hand warmers when it's really cold? All of that stuff is really great. And somebody invariably brings a stereo out. Somebody invariably has, whatever, lights and so many things that people bring. It's really been fun. It's sort of a carnival atmosphere. I'm reminded, I don't know why the line that keeps coming back to me is Reading, Alexius, because one, it was just frigid cold, but also there happened to be a Christmas parade that day, and it went right by the venue. And so all of us were in line, and then all of a sudden, all these locals started putting chairs on the opposite side of the street. And we all started freaking out, like, oh my God, are we in the wrong place? Like, what's going on? What's happening? And then
were they trolling you?
No, they were sitting there for the parade, because it happens every year. And so they were coming see their, high school trumpet player come by, or their dance troupe, or whatever the heck it was. And so it was really funny though. So then we realized what's going on, because they start closing off the streets, and then the parade starts. And then we just kept getting candy thrown at us from the people in the parade. They were like, what are you doing out here? We're like, oh, we're waiting for a show. And they're like, for tickets? Or like, no, to go in. They're like, when does it start? And we were like, well, we won't get until 6:30. And they were looking at their watches and like, take all this candy. I'll need more candy. So they just kept like throwing stuff at us. But yeah, I would say that that's the first thing, is like, you do have to get there early. It's a long process of just like waiting to get in. Yeah, I don't know if there's not a lot of politics to it. It's just really like first come, first serve, and just respecting when people have shown up and have arrived and, kind of in space. Yeah.
I call it like the tailgating, because people are like, why do you want to do that? And I'm like, it's the same thing before a football game, before any type of game, that you're out there tailgating and spending time with your friends and eating food and drinking. This is the same exact thing that it is. We are tailgating for a concert, that we just want to make sure that we get the good spots. And so we're just tailgating for a concert all day long. And that's what it is.
That's a perfect analogy to explain to people who, we talked a little bit about like how if you're unfamiliar with jam band culture, how you might not know. I mean, there are kind of politics a little bit about, where riding the rail and being up front and all that. And like, I know somewhere I've seen before, there's like the geography of a Grateful Dead show and like all the, right. And so that has definitely evolved and maybe isn't quite as like rigid as it used to be, but definitely there's like certain places that certain types of people hang out or whatever. And, I was asking y'all about how, well, if someone who's ever been to a jam band show shows up and they, are used to being up front and, finagling their way, but they didn't wait in line and they didn't, adhere to the culture, how are they treated by the diehard rail riders? So yeah, I mean, if you want to speak to that, but yeah, I don't know.
I would say, usually we kind of there's like a +1 situation that you can have, but usually if you have a +1, like proper etiquette is like, unless that you're there like first thing in the morning and you're the first person. And a lot of times Leslie and I will go out, and I go out a lot when it's freezing cold. I'm the one who's not out there, as I'll go out, and make sure that my position is, everyone knows that I'm out there. But definitely there's usually like a +1. And I know some people that do like +6 or 7s, and not cool at all. I will speak to that. That's not cool. But if you do, like, a lot of times what happens is the group will come up behind and behind those people, and they're not like kicking people off the rail or taking their spots, but usually there's a +1 situation that you can do. And usually with me and Jason, when we do the +1, I'm shorter, so I stand at the rail, and he stands behind, and we'll switch out. And but we definitely need to get a system. I was talking to some friends about that and about some things that different venues are doing. And I was like, we definitely need to get a system. I'll bring it up in a little bit, but there are different ways. Like, it is rude. People do think it's rude. They do, we're a very calm group. So, we'll let things slide a couple of times, but then when you tend to be doing it multiple times in a row, someone at some point is going to call you out. And, and then people just look like, oh, wow. But it's not cool. I mean, I just wouldn't want to be that person that everyone's just like, really? They really just like got here in front of everyone. But I will say the community has been absolutely awesome, because y'all know I have epilepsy, and at times I'll be completely fine. You'll have no idea that I'm having problems whatsoever. But when I met Leslie and I was my epilepsy started getting, like much worse, and my headaches were becoming vicious. And so I will say that the Rel family was absolutely amazing. And I was on these shows, and they're like, and I couldn't get out in line all day. And they're like, it's okay. You go rest. We'll hold your spot for you. So everyone's absolutely been amazing since October. Like, mine has flared up really badly. And everyone on the rail is like, it's completely okay. You're just one person. We've got this for you. Don't worry. So everyone's really cool. It's just the way that you approach it. And always remember, you can catch more flies with honey than vinegar. So just be kind about it.
And I would also say, like, there's also just expect you may get questioned, like don't think that it's a affront to you. Somebody may say, hey, somebody's standing there, or they just went to the bathroom, or, you can't stay there for the whole show. Because that's what will happen. There'll be a spot for a minute. Somebody will try and like sneak into it. And then they probably aren't even with the person who's not there, but they're like, somebody's standing there. They just went back there for a minute. So just expect that you'll get some communication. I think it's usually very like nice and very not rude or anything, but somebody will say something. So that's
right.
That's one thing I would say, is to be prepared for that. And you can at that moment say, oh, no problem. I'm just trying to take a picture, or I just want to get this shot real quick. And literally as soon as those words come out your mouth, everyone's like, okay, cool, whatever. And then we go back to whatever we're doing. So that's the thing I would say, is just expect someone may ask you something, and just talk with them and let them know what you're trying to do. And communication is key. That's what I would say.
Yes, preach.
And be kind. Always be kind, because you will get much further just being like, hey, I just want to, my first show, or hey, I just want to get this picture. Hey, well, yeah, sure, no problem. But of course, we do get a little bit defensive on certain things, because you'll have those people push up that are just trying, like, oh no, I'm gonna get this spot. And it's like, oh honey, let's not do that. We've been here all day. Let's not get the entitlement going. So, but I did hear, I don't know if I should talk about this now or later, Leslie, about the Phil Lesh and friends.
Yeah, let's talk about it when you go through the best practices. We have two more little subjects, and then we'll get to that, and then you can add it in there. So we talked a little bit about this, about women on the rail at Goose versus other bands, scenes and shows. So I'm just curious, do you all find that to be true or not? What do y'all think? I'll just start with that first question, is do you find that to be true, that Goose has a higher percentage of women on the rail compared to other similar bands? Hannah, what do you think?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think that there's more women. And I mean, I think, I'm going to put on my women's studies hat again. I don't know if you all know this, but so part of the reason why the punk rock third wave of feminism came to be is because at punk shows, and you touched on like pop punk a little bit, Alexius, women were just not safe, period, and stop. They would get physically attacked. They would get assaulted, whatever. And so all these women in the scene were like, hey, this isn't cool. Fuck that. So they started doing like DIY shows where it was like only women in the front, and sort of how to protect each other. They were creating zines and stuff like that on like, how do you protect your fellow women and stuff like that? How can you be in the punk scene as a dude, sort of helping to protect women that you care about? And so like there's this rich history of people who go to shows all the time sort of having this issue. So like if you think about that era and that genre, yes, there was a huge influx of women at these shows because literally women were like, we're starting a new wave of feminism around punk shows so that we can make sure that the space is safe for us. Mm-hmm. And so like there's that component, and obviously that's gone away because there's not really a great underground punk scene anymore. But there's like that history. But then like, at like a lot of jam shows and stuff like that, I just wasn't seeing a lot of women, or like if there were women, it was way more men. And you almost felt like you have to have like what I call my beards, which is like guy friends who people think are your boyfriends, so that creepy guys don't come up to you. And like I have like a pecking order of like, if I'm with this group, this is the guy that they're going to think is my boyfriend. And if that guy's not there, then they'll think this guy is my boyfriend, which that actually recently changed. The pecking order changed recently, but I mean, and now I feel like it has become a lot, safer, and we do see more women at Goose shows for sure.
Definitely. Chelsea and Alexis, what do y'all think? Do you find that to be the case, that there's more women up front at Goose shows?
Yeah, I was going to say, I've always felt safe at Goose shows. I never really had a negative experience for most of the Goose shows I went to. And then Leslie, when you were talking about, when we just first started talking of like, I don't feel safe in the Fish pit and like on the rail at Fish. And I was like, oh, really? Like that's a thing? Like I've never felt that at a Goose show, so much so that I was like, I did the NOLA shows alone and I was really close. I was probably like 5th row up there and I felt totally fine the whole time. And so I was actually surprised by that this wasn't the norm, I guess, for the jam band scene. I was like, oh, there is a lot of women and I do feel fine. And I was totally comfortable going to shows alone. But I do feel the vibe, Hannah, of like, sometimes you feel like you need a dude with you to be like, I don't know. So guys leave you alone. Yeah.
I forget. And then I was at Dead and Company Charlotte, and I was just with my sister, and lo and behold, creep guy.
Oh yeah. And I go alone. So I get that. I even get that in my local shows of like,
oh yeah,
because I'll go alone too. And like, sometimes you feel like a woman's voice is not enough. Like one dude told me, like, I wish someone would have told me, because I told him off. You guys all know I told you the story. He's like, I wish someone would have told me to leave you alone. I said, I told you. I told you 3 times. Listen to women. Exactly. But I really haven't had huge issues at Goose shows as far as that. It is nice to have a lot of other women around you. So,
yeah.
Goose shows, I have definitely not had that issue. Definitely Charlotte Dead and Company show. It definitely needed a man in that situation. And I couldn't even go halfway down. I couldn't even get close to the rail. Like if I'm not with a man and I'm feisty, like there's no problem. I can get that attitude out. But it's at Dead and Co shows, I will not go, past a certain point. Most of the time, if I'm by myself and only with a group of girls, we'll stay in the lawn and, and just not even get close in the chaos, because I tried. I will tell you, I tried, and I've tried several times, and it does not go well. And which always has shocked me, because I'm like, aren't we supposed to be like really chill hippies? Like, aren't we supposed to, love everyone? And that definitely has not been the case. With bigger, I will say with smaller jam bands, certain ones, Pigeons Playing Ping Pong has a great scene. Like, definitely wouldn't feel that way there. But there's some others, I don't want to be negative and call them out on here, but there's some other smaller ones that I definitely wouldn't go to the front for. So so that's a definite, there are only a couple of bands in the jam band scene that I would feel comfortable going to the front by myself without a man. And Goose is one of them, and Pigeons Playing Ping Pong is one of them. But the other ones, I would not say as much that I would be comfortable, because I was on the rail through Spafford one night, and it wasn't bad until everyone got drunk. And then, like, once the people started getting drunk and stuff, it was horrible. And I had to exit that rail really quickly. But before they were getting drunk, everything was all good and it was awesome. But then once the drunkenness came in, it was inappropriate, 100% inappropriate.
And to be fair, we're not saying don't drink, don't party,
No.
but you are always responsible for your behavior and the consequences of those behaviors. So, you know, being drunk isn't an excuse
Not
for
an
behaving
excuse.
badly.
Right, exactly. You don't get to
be
behave badly
responsible.
just because.
Yeah.
Mhm.
A lot of us are partying, but that
Yeah.
does not give anyone the excuse that they can overstep someone's boundaries. There are boundaries, and you must be respectful of others too.
Absolutely. Well, this is another great segue. Thanks, y'all, to talk about what is colloquially referred to as the temporary autonomous zone that jam band scenes create at their shows, which is kind of this bubble of, and Alexius touched on it, of just like love and joy and hope and togetherness that, that's the goal of going to these shows, like creating this space. I talked about this a lot on Blackberry Jams because it's one of those weird things where I would notice how that people were able to understand concepts like community care and mutual aid and connection and self governance within these temporary autonomous zones of these shows and these festivals and things. But then as soon as they leave, it's like a switch. All those things that they bought into when they were in this zone just disappear. And like they would cut you off in traffic as soon as they leave the venue, right? Like it's that much of a switch that happens, a light switch that happens. And so I think that with Goose, what's been interesting that I've noted is that it feels like so many of us are trying to extend that autonomous zone vibe further and further, like directly into our lives even, and what that means. So I'm just curious of your thoughts around this idea of a temporary autonomous zone. And do you think that the Goose community's approach to it is unique, or what's special about it? Yeah.
Well, I think so. Part of it is my hunch is when Goose's career kind of blew up, because I thought so much about being kind and being empathetic to other people and to strangers because of the pandemic. And so that's when their career really took off. And so I think that was sort of been on the fore of all of our minds is how can we be kinder? What is that person going through? You know, like how can I better the community by staying home if I don't feel well, by wearing my mask, social distancing, all that. So I think part of it could be that. But I also think part of it is that we have these really young idealistic front guys who, you know, Peter's doing all this work with his girlfriend Becky about stuff like, you know, being kind to each other and all that. And so I think part of it is that. So I think it's just a combination of like all these organic things happening. I don't know if you all experience that, but most people, when I bring that up, even if they never thought about it, they're like, yeah, I did become more empathetic during the pandemic. So
definitely 100%. And like I've said before, I feel like through the pandemic that Goose brought a lot of us listening to Goose and, you know, and them getting bigger and bigger brought a lot more positivity and a lot of ways where the world was just collapsing and everything was so negative, and the positivity and beautiful light that came out of Goose and the songs and the lyrics and the shows. I feel that yes, a lot of us are trying to take that autonomy home because it's such a beautiful place. Like I like to say about my shows, I don't want to have any negativity here. This is my safe space. This is like church, and you know, where I come to rebalance, or you know, to get myself back regrounded. And so I don't want any negativity there. And then when I leave, I have now more so found myself like talking more with Goose friends and Goose family all over the country because everyone's more positive. Whereas when I talk to other people at home or go out, you know, or or different friends all over the place, that they're tending to bring more negativity into their life and not looking at the positive way of things. And I think where we have been enjoying that positivity and found the silver lining out of the dark cloud, that it becomes depressing to try and talk to others. And so I know that I'm definitely trying to create that in my life and trying to, keep the positivity around me and to realize like, wow, this can really affect our health, our minds, everything. And so to keep that positivity around you as much as possible and to not have the negativity around you as much. And it has really changed my way of thinking. It's really helped my patience. It's really helped my redheaded temper. And so it's real. It's real. Like, and I can say like my redheaded temper has only been unleashed once. And it wasn't even like, this was like a minor unleashing, a very minor unleashing. And it was just because one person was being extremely rude to another person. I was like, whoa, let's not let this get out of control. But it's just that positivity and wanting to take it home and wanting to share that joy and share that positivity and way of thinking with everyone, that we don't have to be negative, because we all realize there's so much good in this world. If people would just look to the good and not towards what they don't have and the negative and complain about everything, they would see how much happier their lives would be. So I think that's definitely an ongoing thing in our community, and that people are trying to take out of the doors with them.
Yeah. And it's just like connecting with like-minded people for me, of, like you said, Alexius, of those people that are, you can find commonalities, and that you're listening to the same music and you're getting the same messages that Rick is giving through his lyrics and things. And you're kind of on the same page. And so much with like the Goose Chicks group on Facebook is just such a good example of that. Oh my gosh, of just all of us coming together because we love one thing, and then finding that we also love this and we have this in common, and just making those connections and building that community. That's something I've never had personally in like a band I've liked or something. So that to me was really different. And you feel that at the shows, but like I feel that all the time when whoever posts on, Tina posts every morning, our Goose Chicks welcome morning. I start my day with, Tina's positive message, and like, that's because of this band. And so to me, that's really, really special. And our live we did, that's going to be episode 4, I believe, was amazing example of that. So
yeah, for sure. Just getting to interact with more people. And, Alexius, when you talked about, these shows being, healing for you. I always say like music heals, live music really heals. Goose is super healing. I had a really tough year this year, and they were like this bright spot that I was able to like grab onto and be like, oh, there's joy I can find. There's something I can hold on to and keep it with me and take it with me. And as Chelsea just said, meeting people that find value in that same thing is really what I feel has been the folks I've connected with the most in the Goose community. Is like we all recognize the healing nature of music and the way this band in particular brings itself to their audience, and we all like tap into that thing where, the endorphins are running. I said that, I was like, if y'all look at the pictures we took at set break, all of us look like we are completely OD'd on dopamine, because our endorphins were just like completely just at the top levels they possibly could be. And you can see it physically on us in the 3 photos that we posted that we took together at set break, because you can just see it on us. Like you can physically see that we're just like in this euphoric state and, taking that with you. And like, I have that all the time. I listen to so many shows, but I go back to the ones I was at the most, because I just can close my eyes and just put myself right back there and really remember. And then all the other memories that are connected with that run or that show start to come back to me. Then I start thinking about people. And so it just puts you in a specific headspace that you're able to kind of carry with you forward. And yeah, I mean, New Year's Eve was my 21st show this year. And
yes, girl,
a lot of fucking shows, a lot of shows. And I I realized at New Year's Eve, we walked in there and I was like, oh, it's the last show of the year. It's my 21st show. It's pretty cool. Very excited about it. And then I started being like, getting myself ready to actually experience Goose. And I have like a little ritual I do. I do a whole stretch routine. I'm old, y'all. I have to stretch because I like to move.
That's good.
And usually when I start stretching, like everybody around me is like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. And then everybody starts stretching and it's like turns into like a whole thing. And I remember just looking around. I looked up and down the rail and it was like 95% women, and the men that were up there, like their partners were up on the rail too. So it wasn't even just like random dudes or anything like that. It was just really beautiful. And when we were at Goosemiths, spoiler alert, The Atlantic is writing an article about Goose. I think it should be out by the time you guys hear this particular episode. Shout out to Charlie, who's the writer. I got to spend a little time with him when in Broomfield, and he came up. I told him, but when he interviewed me, I was like, listen, when you go to the show tonight, really pay attention to the rail. Pay attention to how many women are up there, because it's significant and it's really different. And I think you really need to make sure you include this in the article. So I was on the rail both nights and I said, hey, I'm up. I texted him like, hey, I'm on the rail. Come on up here. So he came from backstage and he's like, oh shit. Like, it's all women up here. I'm like, yeah, it is. Yep. Night 2 was even more women. He came up because I think I was Pete's side night 1 and I was right in front of Rick night 2. And he walked up to me and he goes, wow, there's even more women up here. He's like, the first 3 rows is like almost all women. I'm like, I told you. And so this is, I say all of that to just be like, yeah, we notice it. We see it. And more women are recognizing like, oh, it is safe up here. I can come up here. I can be next to to people. The Fox Theater was another great example of that, where it was like really crowded, super small venue, but we all just started like looking out for each other. Like, okay, Candace, you can be here, and Alexius, you stay here, and then we're gonna like position each other so that we have space around each other. We're not crowding folks. Right. Yeah. So all of that, it really just got me thinking about, us bringing back that feeling with us that we come home with, and like how we can continue to get back there. And, my saying is always the best Goose show is the next Goose show. So it's always, that's my mantra. It's always been my mantra, is like every show is great, but the best one is the next one. Right. We get to see each other again. We get to be in that autonomous space again together and listen to this great band. All right. Yeah. Best practices. Alexius has been kind enough to put together some best practices for the rail. And I want to turn over the floor to her to get those out.
Okay. So best practices for the rail. And a lot of these can be taken anywhere in the place. First thing, be considerate and be kind. There are people that have been out before the show for hours, and it's not kind to think that you can just run to the front of the line. And if you have a kind attitude in this community, you'll get far, but don't be disrespecting 20 to 30 plus people and then want to say, hey, be cool. Like, okay, you want everyone else to be cool, but you're not being cool. So another very important thing is get to know the people around you in line that day. And when you get inside to the rail or wherever you're standing, get to know the people around you. That's very important because everyone ends up protecting each other and holding each other's spots. And so, and a big thing on the rail is we have all paid the same amount for tickets. Do not take up multiple spots. I know multiple people that dance in like a T form and their arms go out and it knocks, that's one person to the left, that's one person to the right. And, be kind and be considerate. If you want to dance like a T, stand the other way, just make sure that your surroundings around you and not take up multiple spots. And, So don't push up at set break and be rude. People have to use the restroom, and people will be coming back to their spots. And don't try and cause a fight when they come back. Their stuff is obviously there. This is a big problem, is where we'll have like men try and use their stature with women, and like, oh, we're going to push up through set break, and where it's all women on the front and we're trying to be cool, but then they'll come up and have both legs apart, both arms apart, and so I'm being rude. So let's not do that. And so chompers, chompers, let's keep it down. Let's keep it down.
No
Listen,
chomping.
you know what? I'm gonna have us at some point record a PSA about chompers and just have it out. We're gonna do a whole thing around it because it's really like the worst. I don't know if you're going to mention earplugs, but if you don't, make sure I do Alexius before we.
Oh, I got that on the list.
Of
for
course.
Sure. Yeah. And so, but also chompers, there are microphones on each sides of the stages. And so they're recording what's going on. And we don't want to hear your conversation when we're going back over nugs and band camps. And that happens. So be aware when you're on the front of where the microphones are turned out and make sure that you're not having a conversation right in front of the microphones. I know I've had to a few times, like point on someone's shoulder and point to the microphone and just be like, hey, the microphone's right there, please. And they're all really sweet. They're like, oh, I didn't even realize that. Thank you. And so also, if you're not a very energetic person, if you're not a dancing type person, if you're a swaying type person, that's fine. But if you're just going to stand up at the rail like a tree and not move, remember the band is getting a lot of their energy off of the crowd. And so if you're not going to move, don't stand up in front of, don't be on the rail to where people are dancing and having a good time. And then you're just sitting there checking your text messages and, doing things like that. I really don't understand why people do that on the rail. I'm like, go to the back or go somewhere else. Don't be on the rail checking messages. And, so, because the band's getting their energy from us, so let's give them the love that they're feeding us for sure. That's the reason it's a big thing of mine, is because to me it's disrespectful to the band. It's basically saying, your music's crap. It's not worth my time being up here. So I'm very loyal. So that's why it kind of gets to me. But then the people are amazing on the rail. So everyone be amazing to each other. And and I do let's see. So one big pet peeve for the rail is the sprinting running and, everyone just taking off and, trying to get to the rail faster than the other, at the very beginning of the night. It can get very very stressed and stuff, where people have been there all day and they're trying to get their spot and then they can't get their spot, or someone else is running and people are about to break legs, break arms, knock people over, and so just to get the rail. So it's let's calm down. And so I was trying to see. So also glasses are important on the rail, because right when you're up front, those lights are coming out and they're so bright. So I always wear glasses, especially I have epilepsy too. So I always have sunglasses on with UV rays and the strongest ones.
Yeah, so, I would say that's a big one. Make sure you have, if you're going to be on the rail, you have to have glasses. It's really bright.
Wow.
It's
I never would have thought of that.
It's so
very,
bright up there.
Very bright. Yeah.
Sometimes the spotlight's just right in your eyes. It's very critical. Truly.
It is. And people will be like, why are they wearing sunglasses? If you're on the rail, you have to. Yeah, you have to. There's no other choice for it. And then also earplugs. I know, at first when I was going to concerts, I was like, that is so stupid. Why would you have earplugs? Why would you wear earplugs? And I've specifically gotten I got them for my daughter when she went to Charlotte at the beginning of this year. And that came with 2 pair. And so I started wearing 1 pair of them, and you actually can hear what they're saying on the microphone. When I'm not wearing earplugs, they'll say something. I'm like, what did they just say? Because there's the reverb and stuff, or the vibrations from the microphone, or not microphones, but speakers. And so if you have earplugs in, you can actually hear what they're saying. It's not hurting your ears. And I can actually hear what people are saying 5 days later instead of going, huh, what? So,
exactly.
So those are big things of being on the rail. And just the main thing, just be kind and considerate, and don't think it's set break that you can just push up. And also, like we said earlier, we are completely down to share. If you want a song, if it's your first show, if it's, we want you to have a great first show. I'll never forget at my first show, Addison, I think it's Bradley. He was there, and he'd been a longtime fan. And so he was right up front, Pete side, sweet side. And he turned around and we're talking to him, and he's like, oh, this is your first show? And we were like, yeah. And he's like, oh, well, by all means, then you get right here. You have the perfect spot. And so it's just so kind. And my husband was doing the same thing the other night at New Year's Eve and New Year's Eve with this kid. And he was by himself. He was with no one else. And it was his first show. And so, my husband would trade back and forth with him to make sure that he had that rel opportunity his first night. So, and a lot of people will. A lot of people, if you're not on the rel, the song you like, make sure you just like tap someone on the shoulder and be like, this is my favorite. And they'll be like, oh, well, come on, and so people are very kind. It's not very strict, but we just don't want for people to be rude to us. We've been waiting all day, and if you're not rude to us, we'll be kind to you. So so it's just one of those, be kind, and if you're kind, you can get a lot of things.
I would recommend the Eargasm earbuds. Plugs, if you're going to get some. They're not super expensive. There are more expensive ones that you can get, like specially fitted for you and all this stuff. Drew has been joking. He might go up a level because of Trevor. Because Trevor does sometimes break through the decibel levels, but usually it's just fine. And I will say I wear my ear plugs even when I'm not on the rail because it cuts out the chompers. So it literally just makes them disappear. So if you're ever at a show, I won't need it for the music, but I'll see there's people talking around me and I'm like, fuck this. And I'll just put my earplugs in and then I'll hear the music fine and the chompers just fade out. So they're great to just have generally. And I really highly recommend them. And also you really don't realize how much damage happens to your ears over a long period of time. And so this is also just to keep all of our hearing healthy so that we can continue to enjoy music well into our later stages of life. And so, yeah, I'm just a big proponent of protecting your ears at concerts. It's just important. Yeah.
My dad has permanent hearing loss from going to too many shows and not doing earplugs. So whenever I'm talking about going to shows, he always is like, do you have earplugs? And I'm like, Dad, you never use them. But that's why. Yeah,
it is. Another thing I forgot to say is that usually on the rail, we, in the non-VIP section, because sometimes they'll split it up VIP where it's rail, one section of rail will be VIP and one section won't be. So in the regular GA rail, we really try not to have alcohol on the front row. Or if we do, there's a trash bag to put it in, because the worst thing is dancing and stickiness all night long to where your feet, can't move. And so that's another big thing is like, just try for water only. And VIP, they usually get, alcohol over there. And that's cool because I'm not with them in the section. So if that's where they want to, if that's what they want to do, that's cool. And they pay for it in VIP. They pay for their own special bar. So I totally get that. But, we just don't want to be dancing in alcohol all night. And, because it's so sticky. It's happened several times and it's not that fun. So now it's become a thing where we're like, all right, drink your drinks before the concert starts. If you want alcohol, drink it before. But once the show starts, have your drinks thrown away, water only after that.
Yeah, and if you see my husband at a show, he'll likely be screaming, garbage, garbage, at set breaks with a big garbage bag. He's very dedicated to keeping things clean around.
I appreciate that.
Well, I think most of the time it's like people just need a place to put stuff. And when they don't provide one, they'll just put it on the floor. Yeah. So I was surprised at the Fox Theater. They used glasses there. We've been to a couple of venues recently. And I was like, how is this going to work? They just kept sending staff through the crowd grabbing glasses. And I was like, wow, because no one's going to put a glass on the floor. They hold them until somebody takes it. And I was like, oh, the floor was so clean that night. I was astounded. I was like, oh, that's how.
It was so clean. That's where I was doing my starfish to hold 5 spots. Because I was like, how do I hold 5 spots? But everyone was so kind at the Fox. We did not have that problem at all. And, here I am prepared to hold 5 spots. Everyone's like, it's cool. We're not going to take it. I was like, oh, thank you. This is awesome.
But also I enjoy being a starfish. So maybe I'll just keep
Exactly. This feels really good like this. I can stretch out. And
you were so cute down there.
Do you want me to bring up the Phil?
Yeah. Talk about that. Mm-hmm.
So I was talking to some of my rail riding buddies, everyone's so kind. They're just mainly like, oh, just be kind, let's not, because we've had some people get bitten and, punches tried to be thrown and stuff for people that are trying to push up from the back and just like, trying to make their way known. And so anyway, so what a few friends that were at the Phil Lesh and Friends show, they said that what they were doing was that the first person that got there had a Sharpie and put a number 1 on their hand. And then after that, the next person that got there was a number 2 and, so on and so forth. And so it was given so each person knew exactly what number and when they showed up. And it was respected by everyone and by the venue. So when the venue opened, the people who were the top numbers, they didn't have to run. They didn't have to try and kill each other. Nothing. They knew who was on the rail and they got up there, and those top numbers were the ones who got the rail. And they're like, we really need to get this going in the Goose community because it is getting really dangerous for people running and shoving. And, and some people have entitlement where they feel that they get to go before others and make others wait until, instead of stepping aside and waiting for a person to come help them, they're like, no, wait. And so it really messes up the line of how things are done. And so it just, so sometimes your all day of waiting can go to complete waste because, someone else is not wanting to cooperate. So I really like that idea of the numbers and who was out there first and who held their spot. So maybe that's something Goose community that we can all come to a census on and, and find something that works for us and, that it won't be a problem.
I love that idea. So y'all listen up. We'll keep talking about this, talk about it amongst your friends. Next shows, maybe we can have some conversations in line at the cap and see what's the what with everyone. All right. Thanks for such a great discussion about the rail and positioning and, being cordial at shows and best practices. I really appreciate that. That brings us to the end of our show. We still want to hear from... Oh, go ahead, Hannah. Sorry.
I have one final thing. Yes, so because of our lived experiences and the focus of our show, we really talked a lot about the experience of women, and we talked a lot about men behaving badly. So just like, I want to get on the soapbox and say, like, obviously we all bring men to shows that we absolutely love. And we are not saying that all or even most men behave badly. We're just sharing our experiences of men behaving badly. And also, so one, it's like we acknowledge that most men are kind in this community and are not like that. And then also, I think sometimes too, it's like when you see on TV shows and music videos and stuff like that, men being rowdy or men touching women inappropriately, but the women respond in a not natural, positive way, you don't know what you don't know. So we're also just trying to shed light on the fact that, like, as a man, you may have, touched a woman or, to try and move her out of the way or, try to snatch her up to get space. And you didn't even realize that what you were doing maybe made a woman feel uncomfortable or even another man feel uncomfortable. And we acknowledge you don't know what you don't know. So we're just trying to create discourse around all this so that in the future, maybe someone rethinks like, oh, maybe I shouldn't act that way. And women can also take up too much space too, right? And so just, having these conversations, we're not here to point fingers. We're not here to say, oh, all men are terrible, because we love men, the men in our lives. But I just wanted to point that out. This is just our lived experiences.
Thank you, Hannah, so much for saying that, because actually, I'm so glad that you said that, because actually, one of the people that take up a lot of space on the rail is a woman. And I was not referring to a man at all. And the person who was biting and throwing punches to get up to the front, like being like physical like that, like not just trying to, hey, can I get up here, was a woman. So it's not always so this is rules for everyone. This is not always for men. I'm very sorry that I did say, sometimes men can use their stature and to get through and stuff. And it's not, we love you guys. We absolutely love y'all. The guys of the Goose community, y'all are very respectful. And it's so nice to be able to go up to the front and to go to the bathroom and to go all over the place and know that I'm safe, that I don't have to take someone with me. So I do want to thank all of you Goose guys for being amazing and Thank y'all. And let's just set the example for the other bands of this is how we do. And like Leslie said at the Taboo show, this guy was like, oh, hey, that's, consent is a big thing in this culture.
Right.
And so it's a great thing to continue going. And, this is helping new fans come in and kind of the way that we do things and stuff. But we love all you guys. This is not to be, this is for everyone, guys, girls, whomever, this is not trying to be negative towards one or the other.
Yeah, thanks for that, Hannah and Alexius, adding that additional color. Yeah. People can just behave badly. But I do think we also are very aware of this unique dynamic of so many women at Goose shows, right? Which is something that is really unique and something we talk about a lot. All righty. Well, we still want to hear from you, though. We have a voicemail line set up for all the Goose Chicks and fans, everybody and fans, to share your experiences with Goose and with other Jan bands. Or if this episode has something that resonated with you, we'd love to hear from you as well. You can call 704-275-3128 to leave us a message. It might get played here on the show. This week, we're asking folks to call in and tell us where you like to sit or stand at shows. Again, that number is 704-275-3128.
Goose Chicks podcast is produced by Leslie Mack with support from sound engineer Matt Dwyer, co-host Alexius Lipot, and contributors Chelsea Long and Hannah Liebreich.
We are a proud member of the Osiris Media family. You can check us out on socials at Goose Chicks Pod and on our website, goosechickspod.com. As always, we encourage our listeners to support the Western Sun Foundation. Visit westernsunfoundation.org for more information.
Special thanks to our sponsors, Ben & Jerry's, for their support, especially Jay Curley and Jay Tandon and their teams. Be sure to check out Ben & Jerry's latest flavor, Lights, Caramel, Action, in partnership with director Ava DuVernay, which gives back through her Array Alliance, which advances social justice through art.
And remember, as always, subscribe and leave us a review in your favorite podcast app. Also, tell your friends about the show. It really helps us. And don't forget to call our number and leave us a message at 704-275-3128. Until next time, be kind to each other out there.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Osiris.